I've been a winning poker pro for 7 straight years, and poker math is one of the biggest reasons I know when a call is worth it and when it's a fold. Most players do not need complicated formulas, they need the simple numbers that stop them from calling bad odds, chasing dirty outs, and bluffing players who were never folding. In this video, I'll break down pot odds, equity, bluffs, EV, and the math that helps you make better decisions before the chips go in. The first concept is pot odds. Pot odds are the price you are getting to call. It sounds more complicated than it is because players hear the word odds and immediately think they need to become a calculator at the table. You don't have to, you just need to know the easy math behind it. Let's keep it very simple. There is $100 in the pot and your opponent bets $50. Now there is a total of $150 in the middle, and if you call, the final pot becomes $200. Here's the question. Do you have enough equity to call 50 to win a final pot of 200? The formula is the call amount divided by the final pot. So $50 divided by $200 is 25%. This means you need to have 25% equity for the call to break even before we think about future money. Now let's try the same exercise using a pot size bet. There is $100 in the pot and your opponent bets $100. If you call, the final pot becomes $300. You are calling 100 to win 300, so 100 divided by 300 is 33%, or 1/3 of the pot. You need to win 1 out of 3 times for the call to make sense. This is where players start torching money. They do not compare the bet to the pot. They only look at their hand and say, I have a flush draw, or I have top pair, or I do not believe them. Looking at your hand is not the entire decision because the price changes everything. Here is a quick cheat sheet that can help make calculating pot odds easier for you with the most used bet sizes. Let's assume the pot has $100 in it. On the left, you will see the bet sizes. The middle shows the final pot if you call. The right shows the percent equity needed to make the call. You will see the correlation that as the bet size increases, the amount of equity required increases. This is why those random huge all-ins at your poker tables should spark curiosity. When someone jams 3 times the pot, they are mathematically giving you a horrible price. One pair is not going to cut it most of the time. You need an extremely strong hand to consider putting more money in. You do not need to memorize every number perfectly. The main anchors are enough to start. A half pot bet means you need around 25%. A pot size bet means you need around 33%. A huge overbet means you need a very strong main hand or a very strong combo draw. The main idea to focus on is small bets mean you have the pot odds to continue wider, and big bets mean you need to continue less. Huge bets punish the players who call because they are curious. So the next time you face a bet, ask yourself, what price am I getting to call? This one question alone will save you a lot of money. If you want simple rules that help you make these live low stakes decisions without guessing, grab my free guide, The Low Stakes Poker Blueprint, by scanning this QR code. It has 100 rules for the spots that come up again and again, including when to call, when to fold, and when the price is not good enough. You can also receive it by clicking the pinned comment in this video. Now that we know pot odds, we need to talk about equity. Equity is how often your hand is expected to win the pot if the hand goes to showdown. If you have 50% equity, you should expect to win about half of the time. If you have 80% equity, you should expect to win 4 out of 5 times. This matters because poker players ask the wrong question all the time. They ask, am I ahead right now? And this is not the question you should worry about. Sometimes you are behind right now, but your hand still has a lot of equity. Sometimes you are ahead right now, but your hand is vulnerable and a lot of turn and river cards can make your life miserable. I want to use a simple all-in example. If you have ace king against pocket queens before the flop, you are behind because they have a made pair, but you still have a lot of equity because an ace or king can put you ahead. You also may have opportunities for flushes and you can make a straight. Your hand has a real chance to win by time all 5 cards come out. Now compare that to aces against kings. Aces are a huge favorite. The person with kings is not dead, but they're in bad shape. If this spot happens again and again, aces are going to win majority of the time. To keep the math easy, aces against kings are an 80% favorite, meaning you will win 4 out of 5 times or 40 out of 50 times. This is one reason to not be upset when aces are cracked, because look at how often you can still lose even though it feels as if you should always win. Then there are spots where one player has 100% equity. If the turn comes and your opponent is drawing dead, they have 0% equity. They cannot win no matter what river comes. That is rare, but it helps explain what equity means. Equity is not a feeling. It is your hand's share of the pot based on how often it wins. Here is where this starts to become a real decision in post-flop situations. You flop a flush draw, face a half pot bet, and think, I do not have a made hand. That is true, but it is not the full thought process to have. If your equity is high enough and the price is good enough, folding just because you are behind right now can be too tight. The opposite happens with top pair. You have it and then face a big turn check raise from a tight player and tell yourself, I think I am still ahead. Maybe you were ahead on the flop, but that does not mean you are ahead after more cards could have changed the equity you once had. This is why pot odds and equity work together. Pot odds tell you the price, and equity tells you how often your hand wins. If your equity is higher than the price you are being offered, calling is the play, and please do not forget about raising too. If your equity is lower than the price, you need another reason to continue, such as implied odds or a specific player type, which we will discuss later in this video. Hoping and praying the right card comes is not how you win at the poker tables. To be able to calculate equity in real time, you need to understand outs. Outs are the cards that can improve your hand. If you have a flush draw, there are 9 cards left in the deck that can complete your flush. With an open-ended straight draw, there are 8 cards that make you a straight. If you have 2 overcards, you may have 6 possible outs to make top pair. Also, when you have a gutter to a straight, you have 4 possible outs. Keep in mind, these are just outs for you to make a strong hand. Sometimes an opponent may be betting into you with a non-made hand that you are ahead of. Here is the part most players forget about. Not all outs are clean. A clean out is a card that improves your hand and likely gives you the winner. A dirty out is a card that improves your hand but can still leave you with the losing hand. Let's say you have king queen on jack 10-4 with 2 hearts. An ace or a 9 can make you a straight, but if the ace or 9 of heart comes, the flush also completes. That does not mean you can never continue and are automatically beat, but it does mean every out is not the same. Sometimes players love to chase cards, not realizing when they make their hand, it may also complete their opponent's. Getting there does not matter if you got there with the second best hand. The same thing can happen with a weak flush draw. If you have 6-5 of hearts on a jack 9 deuce 2-heart board, a heart gives you a flush. But if another player can have the ace high or king high flush draw in their range, your out can become the card that gets you stacked. This is an important factor to always consider. There is another small thing to understand. Some cards may be unavailable because players folded them, but since you do not know which ones, you can still use an estimate. It is another reason not to treat outs like they are perfect. Outs give you a starting point. They do not give you permission to ignore ranges, the player, board, stacks, and the action. The clean thought process is this: what cards do I improve on? Which of those cards are clean outs? What price am I getting? And if I hit, am I happy putting more money in? If you cannot answer those questions, be careful calling just because you have a draw. Now that we understand outs, we can use the live out shortcut. Most players know this as the rule of 4 and 2. I like calling it the live out shortcut because that is what it is. It is not a perfect math formula, but it's easy math to estimate your equity at the table without sitting there doing long division while everyone is waiting on you. When you are on the flop going to the turn and are making a call, multiply your clean outs by 4. When you are on the turn going to the river, multiply your clean outs by 2. So if you have a flush draw with 9 clean outs on the flop, 9 times 4 gives you about 36% equity. If you are on the turn with 1 card left, 9 times 2 gives you about 18% equity. If you have a straight draw with only a gutter with 3 clean outs, 4 times 3 gives you about 12% equity on the flop. On the turn, 3 times 2 gives you about 6% equity. This is not perfect to the decimal, but with making poker math easy, it's not supposed to be. At the table, you should be trying to get as close to your estimated equity as possible in the quickest way so you can focus on more important aspects of the table, such as ranges, positions, and player type. The bigger mistake is not being off by 1 or 2%, it is counting bad outs as clean outs. If you think you have 8 outs, but some of those cards make someone else a better hand, your math is already wrong before you multiply anything. So before you use the shortcut, start with the word clean. Clean outs times 4 on the flop and clean outs times 2 on the turn. This is the part I want you to remember. This next topic is huge for live poker because it is something people are not aware of or forget about in the moment. Multi-way pots change the math. Most low-stakes games are not clean heads-up pots where one player raises and one player calls. A lot of the time, someone opens, 2 people call, the blinds come along, and now 4 or 5 people see a flop. When that happens, your hand needs to be stronger. You might think the bigger pot makes bluffing more attractive, but multi-way bluffs need every player to fold. Keep in mind, the more people in the pot, the more chances there are for one player to have a piece of the board. Let's say you have King 10 suited on a King 8-7 rainbow flop. Heads up, maybe you can continue against certain players and sizes, but if someone bets pot into 4 other people, do you really think your top pair weak kicker is a profitable call? The math changed because you are no longer trying to beat one range, you are trying to beat multiple. Someone can have top pair with a better kicker, 2 pair, a straight draw to the nuts, aka the best possible made hand. In this case, it would be if someone has Jack 10 and a 9 comes on the turn, or even a set, which is 3 of a kind. The more players in the pot, the more likely someone connected with the board. Multi-way pots also affect your outs. If you have a flush draw heads up, you may feel good about your 9 outs, but if the pot is multi-way, someone can easily have a better one. This is where players make a very expensive mistake. They say, I am getting a good price because there is so much money in the pot. This can be true, but the reason there is so much money in the pot is because multiple players are interested in the hand. This is what should have your alarm bells going off. More money in the middle does not automatically mean you have a good call. You still need to ask, how many players am I against? Are my outs clean? If I hit, can someone still have a better hand? And is this player betting into multiple people with a hand I beat or a draw worse than mine? At low stakes, when someone bets big multi-way, you need to respect it more. Players are already not bluffing enough heads up, which means we can conclude they are bluffing even less into 3 or 4 people. So when the pot goes multi-way, Do not treat your hand like it only has one opponent to beat. Remember, multi-way means stronger ranges and fewer random bluffs. If these are the spots that confuse you, this is exactly why I made the low stakes poker blueprint. It gives you 100 simple rules for the live low stakes decisions that come up constantly, including multi-way pots, bad draws, and spots where one pair starts not to be the best hand. Scan the QR code on the screen or use the link in the pinned comment and I will send it to you for free. Now, let's talk about a topic everyone loves to hear about: bluffs. Bluffing math is just asking one question: how often does this bet need to work? If the pot is $100 and you bet $50 as a bluff, you are betting $50 to win 100. The formula is bet divided by bet plus the pot. So 50 divided by 150 means your bluff needs to work about 33% of the time to break even. If it works more than 1/3 of the time, it becomes profitable, and if it works less than 1/3 of the time, it is now a losing play. This is where fold equity comes in. Fold equity just means your hand does not have to win its showdown if your bet gets them to fold enough. This is what makes bluffing profitable. But here is the low stakes and the live poker problem: some players do not fold enough. You can have a bluff that looks beautiful on paper and still be lighting money on fire against the wrong person. If someone hates folding any made pair, stop trying to make them fold. You are not going to win more money by telling a beautiful story to someone who is not listening. I am sure you have tried to triple barrel bluff someone in your game and they called with third pair or fourth pair. Then you get mad and say, how can they call there? The mistake was not them calling, it was choosing this specific player as a target that can't be hit. You should ask yourself, are they capable of folding? Have they shown they can let go a one pair hand? Do they look uncomfortable when a lot of chips go into the middle? Or are they the player who wants to see every river because they put you on ace king no matter what happened? Now, let's think about some questions that focus on poker from our perspective. Does your line make sense? Are you representing hands that you can have? Did the turn or river help your range? Or are you just mad that you missed and are trying to force a spot that is unnecessary? That is not bluffing, it is frustration with chips behind it. At low stakes, you do not need to bluff as much as theory and all of these math wizards say against every player. Some people call with so many worse hands that your money comes from value betting, not bluffing. This brings us to EV, or expected value. EV is what a decision is worth over time. This is the simplest way to think about it. If a play makes money when the spot repeats again and again, it is positive EV. If a play loses money when the spot repeats again and again, it is negative EV. One hand does not prove anything in the long run. You can make a bad call and win, but it does not mean the result of the hand makes the call good. You can also make a good fold and watch the river card come that would have helped you. This does not mean the fold was bad. Poker will mess with your head if you only judge decisions by what happened this one time. You can play a hand well and lose just as easily as you can play a hand badly and win. Playing the hand badly and winning is often overlooked. The pot does not care that you were right this time. It cares what happens when a similar spot shows up again and it's time for you to make a decision. Let's say you face a river bet from a tight player who has not bluffed in 3 hours. Your hand looks pretty good, but the line they took is extremely strong. You fold and they show you a bluff this one time. It feels bad in the moment, trust me, but that does not automatically mean your fold was bad. If that same player takes that same line 100 times and they have it 99 of those times, falling because they bluffed once is how you start gifting them money for free. EV is math keeping you honest. It reminds you that the goal is not to be right this hand, but rather to make the decision that wins over a large sample. This is why I always tell all the players I coach to never be results oriented. It is such a dangerous leak to have at the poker table. The card that comes next does not prove your decision was good. The price, range, player, and all the actions that occurred are what prove the decision was good, aka plus EV. If you want to improve fast, start judging your choices by these factors and not by whether the dealer gave you the card you wanted. The difference between a break-even player and a winner is knowing which decisions make money over time, even when one hand feels annoying. That is why you should grab the low stakes poker blueprint by scanning this QR code. It's a free guide with 100 rules I used to win for 7 straight years. You can also receive it by clicking the link in the pinned comment. Now we need to discuss reverse implied odds. Reverse implied odds is the money you lose when you make your hand and it still gets you in trouble. This is one of the biggest traps in low stakes poker because players think missing is the problem. A lot of the time, the bigger problem is hitting a hand that is good enough to call, but not good enough to win. Let's look at a specific spot where you call pre-flop with ace-7 suited and the flop comes jack-10-9 rainbow. You have a gut shot because an 8 gives you a straight. At first, this looks like a decent draw and you believe calling your opponent's bet is the appropriate play. But what straight are you making? Unfortunately, you are making the bottom end. If your opponent has a queen, they will have the higher straight. If they already had queen 8 suited, they were ahead before you even got excited. So what happens when the 8 comes on the turn? You believe you got there, but then your opponent bets big on the turn and big again on the deuce river that did not complete the flush. Are you really going to fold the bottom end of the straight on a non-flush runout? Most players are not. This is why the flop call can be bad even before you see the rest of the cards. You call to make a hand that may put you in a bigger pot against better hands. This is reverse implied odds. Stack depth makes this even more important. If your opponent is short stacked, the mistake is capped because there is only so much money left to lose. But when you are deep, one bad draw can turn into a giant turn and river call. The correction is simple. Before you call with a draw, ask what happens if you hit. When the answer is, I hit and still hate my life, then you made a call with reverse implied odds. The other side of this is implied odds. Implied odds is the extra money you expect to win after you make your hand. This matters because sometimes the direct pot odds are not good enough by themselves, but the call can still make sense if you expect to win a lot more later. Let's say you have pocket fives and raise in hijack position and a tight player re-raises you on the button. You decide to make the call because stacks are $500 effective in a 1-3 game. Most of the time, you miss the flop and fold to a continuation bet, which is fine. However, when the flop comes jack 9-5 with a flush draw and the tight player has aces, now you can win a big pot. The future money is implied odds. Sometimes players use implied odds as an excuse way too often. They say, if I hit, I am getting paid. But what if your opponent's stack is short? If you were calling with a small pocket pair hoping to flop a set, your opponent needs money on the table. If they only have $90 left in a 1-3 game, you cannot justify calling a big raise just because you might hit a set. There is not enough money to win when you finally make your hand. However, if you are 150 to 200 big blinds deep against a player who cannot fold top pair, that is completely different. The raw equity of your hand did not change, but the situation did. Position is a really significant factor as well. When you are in position, implied odds become better because you act last. If your draw completes on the river and they check, you can bet. If they bluff into you, you can call or raise. You have more control over whether money goes into the pot. Out of position is more difficult. You might hit your hand on the river and check, then your opponent checks back. Some people try to use this as an excuse to lead into their opponent, but they still can fold because the draw that completed was obvious. Even though the math on your draw is the same, your ability to get paid, aka your implied odds, changes. Player type matters as well. Against a calling station, your implied odds can be great because they do not like folding. If your flush comes in and they check to you can bet big and they will still pay with one pair. Against a tight player who shuts down when the obvious draw completes, your implied odds are worse. If we are facing an aggressive player who loves bluffing, your implied odds can improve because they put the money in for you no matter what when you hit. This is why poker math is not just numbers. It is numbers plus the table and your specific situation. If you want simple rules for these exact spots before your next session, get the low stakes poker blueprint by scanning this QR code. It is a free guide with the 100 rules I used to win for 7 straight years. You can also receive it by clicking the link in the pinned comment and I will send it to you for free. Now let's use all of this in one of the biggest spots players mess up: defending re-raises or 3-bets. This is where poker math meets position, range, equity, implied odds, and reverse implied odds. A lot of players look at a hand and say, this is too good to fold. This thought process is not good enough. The question is not only how good your hand looks, but also what is your position, who 3-bet, what range they have, how deep you are, and what happens on future streets. Let's begin with being out of position. You open low jack with king 10 suited and the button re-raises you. This is a spot a lot of players want to call because the hand looks pretty. It's suited, connected, can make top pair, a flush, and most times the best straights possible. You must keep in mind though that after you call, you will be out of position and your opponent will control the dance, being last to act on every street. They were the one who 3-bet, so their range is stronger. If the flop comes king 5 deuce rainbow, you may feel good because you hit top pair, but are you really in an amazing spot? They can have ace king, king queen, aces, and kings. So now the same card you wanted to hit can become the card that gets you to pay off a better hand, which is once again reverse implied odds, but this time in a re-raised pot. When they start betting on all 3 streets, it may be difficult to fold on a clean run out. This is why calling 3-bets or re-raises out of position with hands that can be dominated are so expensive. You are not just trying to make a hand, you want to be able to navigate multiple streets without losing control. Now compare this to being in position. Let's say you open the button and the small blind re-raises you. Now a hand like king 10 suited, queen jack suited, jack 10 suited, etc. can become more playable. Why? Because you are in position and get to act last on every street. If they check, you can check back and realize equity. If they bet too small, you can call with the right price. When the board hits your range and they show weakness, you can apply maximum pressure. Poker players are extremely uncomfortable out of position. If you make a strong hand, it is easier to get paid because they have already built the pot. This does not mean call every suited hand in position, but it means position changes how much of your equity you get to realize. This is why the same hand can be a fold in one configuration and a call in another. King 10 suited versus a button 3-bet when you are in low jack can be a fold, especially against a tight player. King 10 suited on the button versus a small blind 3-bet can be a pure call because you have position and your opponent has to play the rest of the hand first. The hand did not change, but the situation did. Folding pre-flop out of position may seem weak, but it is a disciplined fold we sometimes have to make. You can become a consistent winner in your games with this complete live poker strategy guide. Watch it right now to continue improving your poker skills today.